Hello folks. Today I wanted to share a system I've recently built, and in this system what we were doing is building a system that would let a teacher build a sheet for every student, and the sheet would look something like this. And this one is built to collect data about what students that are in a charter school are doing for their PE time, and they're filling this out once a week. And of course, this could be done with a Google form, but I wanted to do this where we were collecting, where every student actually had their own spreadsheet, and they were collecting their own data here on this data tab. But also, I wanted that data that was being collected to be collected to a data sheet on a teacher's master sheet. And then when you collect the data on the teacher master sheet, you can create pivot tables and so forth to kind of summarize the data in lots of different ways. So what we do is we have a roster here, and the roster, you simply, if you want to create a new student, so in this example, I would add a new student, I would put in their email address, and then when I run my create student sheets, it's going to run the script and it's going to create a new sheet. In this case, I've just added John Revork. So if I open up John Revork's, John's sheet looks like this. It's got his name in it automatically. The date is set to today. And then if John wanted to submit some time, say he wants to submit for next Friday, he's going to do 3.5 hours, and he did some golf, some pogo stick, and some yoga. That was his activities, and maybe he even did this fourth one. And we go ahead and we submit that data. And then you can see what happens when you submit the data. This gets blanked out. Your check boxes go back to unchecked, and our date goes back to the 6th, today's date. And you can see we've collected that data. So on the 9/15, this is the data we just selected. And what we're doing with this particular formula here is he selected multiple things. So we're splitting those. We have a formula in here that actually splits the data that's collected. It's actually collected on this activities. You can see everything that's collected with a comma. And we're basically, keeping that hidden, but you're splitting off for being able to identify all the different activities that kids are submitting. So that's on the student sheet. And I come back here to my master sheet and notice that I've got some new data from John Revork, 9/15, and it's popped into the teacher management sheet so that when I look here, I can see now that John Revork, it's got 2 different days, the 8th and the 15th. And the data is all summarizing for me just the way I'd like to see it on the teacher master sheet. So how does this all work? Well, we start off with a form template. This is just the blank template that we're using, and we grab its URL here or its ID, but we grab this spreadsheet URL, and then when we come back over here, we take a look at the roster sheet. We've got a couple of things we're doing. We're putting in the URL of the student files folder. So when I come back and look here, here's my student files folder. I'm putting this URL on my PE master sheet, and then I have a regex formula that's extracting out the ID in column B2, and then we're using that in the script to identify where to store these files when they get created. So let's take a look then at and let's take a look at the script. So we've got 2 scripts here. One, let's start with this first one, the adding the bulk users on the roster. So this script will take the data that's on the roster sheet. It'll create a copy of the PE form sheet, one for each one, and that's this. That's down here is this ID, and that's the ID of this. If we take a look at this, you can see that starts with 130Q, and we look here and see 130Q. So we're using that ID as a template. And then we're opening that template, and we're actually then getting a folder ID, and that folder ID we had said is stored in B2 of the roster sheet. And then we're opening that folder. And then for each row, what we're doing is if row column 3, it says row 2, but that's column 3 here. If this is blank, then you're going to run the script. If it isn't blank, in other words, there's already data in here, then the script is going to stop running. So you can see right here in that example, if I run the script right now, nothing happens because there is data in each one of those. And that's done with this if row. So if the row is blank, we're going to use the data in row column 1, column 2, column 3. We're going to create a new copy from that template, and we know what that form template is. We're going to let the new copied form, we're going to get its URL, and then we're going to, you know what, I see that I've got a, I didn't like the way that's typed there. It looks like a typo. Fix that up. And then we take that file and we get the new file that's been created, and then we add an editor, and that's the user email. We add that, and then we go back to our source cell on the source sheet, and we go ahead and set the value of that new URL. So that's how we collect these URLs back to the main sheet. So I have a way of opening them up. And then what we do next is set the value of the name. So when you create a new user here on this form, we're setting this value to the student's name. So they don't have to put their name in, and then we collect that data. So then the next script that we have in here is the copy the checked item. So the challenge here, again, we're taking the spreadsheet, we're taking the source sheet, which is this form, and the target sheet. Here's the URL of this sheet, my PE template, and if you made a copy of this, you would change that to your PE master sheet. So you're basically getting the URL for the master sheet where the data is going to be written to. And then we're going to collect that data. We're collecting the name and the date and the hours. We're also figuring out which cell that the date cell and the hour cell, because we're going to blank them out. And then one of the challenges here was to let the set these values. So let the data sheet last row. So we have a data sheet and we have the local target, because we're going to collect data on this data tab for the individual student, and we're also going to collect data on this data tab for the teacher. So that's why we have two different targets here, the local target and the regular target. The challenge here was figuring out how to collect the checkbox data. So what we're doing with that is this set of scripting here is letting me get the checked items. So when you look here, we have these checked items on the form. We have a checkbox in D and the actual item in C. So what we're doing is collecting the whatever's typed in C if D is checked. And then I wanted to put those together, list those together as a comma separated value list. So what you can see there is we have a checked items empty array. Then we're checking each one of these checked items, and we're going through there and checking to see if it's checked. And if it is, it's getting put into the checked items. It's getting pushed into the checked items list. And then we take the checked items list and we join it together. In other words, we're going to concatenate all of those items together with a comma separated value list. And then we write all that data back to the target sheet and to the teacher's master sheet. And here you're writing back the data, the name, and all of this information that we're collecting in A, B, and C. When you look here, we're collecting this data in A, B, and C. In A, the name; B, the date; 3, the hours; and then column 4, we're actually collecting the concatenated list, which we then split. So just a quick summary of what we're doing with this project. It's working for this group of people to collect PE data. The only caveat here is that when you create a new sheet here on the roster for every student, when the student first opens the sheet and runs the script here for the very first time, runs this script, they do have to authorize the script to execute, and then in that case they would run it a second time the very first time it's run, and then after that they can just use this sheet to submit the data, and that way they're collecting data themselves for their own purposes, and they're submitting that data back to a teacher sheet for them to do the summaries.